We get frustrated when things don't go our way or things don't go as planned. We have life happens to us, right? We may experience a death, we may experience loss of a job, we may experience situation with our kids or with our family members, or we may experience something in our own personal goals where, if you're trying to excel in sports or in exercise or just in business and things just don't go your way, we all are going to experience some type of transition, right? So we have to know how to adjust to it. We have to know how to adapt to it. Now, I have to say all of us, but one of the things in transition, because it is a funny space to be in, it's like I'm leaving what I know to be familiar, but then I'm also taking a chance of going, I'm dropping some things off. I'm leaving this bad attitude behind. I'm leaving this bad habit behind. I'm leaving this environment behind. I'm leaving certain people behind because I know it's a weight. I don't want to let them go, but I do have to let it go in order for me to get to the other side, right? So in the midst of that process, it's very easy for us to get complacent, right? Especially when we get hurt and we may fall back on what we're used to. I call it like a pacifier, right? That you give a baby to calm them down. You go back, you go back into your drinking. You go back into that bad relationship. You go back into that toxic relationship. You go back into, that hangout spot that you used to have, knowing that it'll hinder your growth. Sometimes the decisions that we make, it can hinder our growth, right? So in that transition, you have to know how to stay focused, right? You have to decide, and this is a part where maturity kicks in, what's going to come and what's going to stay. Who's going to come in, who's going to stay? What am I going to take with me? What am I going to leave behind? Because when you're in transition, you also want to be in alignment, right? Everything you do, you want to make sure that it's aligned in where you're trying to go or who you're trying to be. For example, obviously I'm a female and sometimes we don't have all the skills when it comes to knowing about these cars. And so just like an alignment with your car, right? So I know for me, I used to, and I got better. When I used to drive my car and it would need an alignment, I'll be driving it, until one day why is it shaking? You let go of the steering wheel, the car go all the way left and you don't know what that is. That's because that car is not in alignment. That's because it needs a tune-up. It needs a fine tune-up. There's something that you have to do. You have to put it in alignment so that way the car goes straight, right? So that way the car goes forward. So as it is in your life, there are certain things that you're going to have to tune up. There are certain things that you're going to have to examine to make sure that this car is running good, to make sure that this car is running straight for the long run. And also, you can't get distracted, right? It's going to be very easy when you're transitioning, when you're making these moves, when you're making these decisions. It's very possible to get easily distracted, right? You don't want that because distraction could keep you right where you at. You will lose time. Some of us don't have a lot of time. Some of us need to stop playing with time. You don't have a lot of time. So you got to put things into perspective. Hey, you got this 5K run coming up. Everything you do from now on, that how you eat, how you sleep, how you take care of yourself, is all in alignment with what you're trying to do, right? You got that business that you're trying to start. Okay, how I write this business plan, how I treat people, how I save up on my finances, how I not cheat on my taxes, on my paperwork. Because you want your own business, listen, what goes around comes around. What you do with your employer, you better be careful and hope that nobody does it to you. You get what I'm saying? You want to be a hairstylist. Okay, you want to open up a salon. Okay, I know I need to buy everything I do. I know I need to buy these materials. I know I got to be looking at a building. I know I got to be looking at an overhead cost. I know, okay, I don't want this certain type of group of people working with me. I know this is how I want to run my business. Everything that you do, time is your best commodity. Time is your best currency. You do not get that back. You got to use your time wisely. Before you know it, it's here. It's here. And you don't want time to pass. You don't get that back. That's one thing you can't recall. You can't call back time. Okay? Once it's gone, it's gone. That's it. Like, once you spill water out of a glass, you can't pick it up and put it back in. That's it. Or whatever. So you got to use your time wisely in this transition. You can't get stuck. I know sometimes people get so they think that they've made it and they will see a half as a whole, right? They will see, okay, this is good enough for me right here. I'm good where I'm at. I done made it. I'm good. And that's okay. If you want to stay where you at, that's okay. But for some of us, if we know that there's better on the other side, if we know that there's a chance that I could attain what's on the other side, that I could grow this thing, that's where I'm going to be. Nothing hurts more than when I go back home and I visit people that I grew up with, they still in the same spot. They got comfortable in their transition. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, for some of us, you know, you want to stay there. You think you made it. Hey, okay. You know, you made it. You know, for some people, they made it. That's it. I remember this, I had this coworker of mine years ago, and they was passing out overtime at the job. He was an older guy, and they was passing out overtime at the job. We was all signing up for overtime, and he was like, He said, that's it. Whatever I ain't got, I ain't got. I ain't going no further. It's gonna be it. I ain't doing no overtime. That's it. I'm old. And so, you know, but nothing hurts me like when I go back home and I see people who, you know, sometimes age ain't nothing but a number, you know, and it's like, man, like, especially when they had so much potential, you know, sometimes things happen or whatever, and they just, some people, they just get stuck in that nutshell, or sometimes people never grow. Sometimes they get complacent, you know, they're comfortable where they at. You still hanging out at such and such, you still drinking the same such and such, you know, you still beefing with something. Like, come on, like, in your transit, you gotta make moves in your transition. You gotta be smart. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be smart. You gotta be wise. Don't get caught up. Don't get left behind. You know, don't lose your time. Don't waste your time. And it's a way of life. We're all gonna go through it. You know, you just gotta learn how to adjust, make the right adjustments, right? Make the right decisions for where you're trying to go. People get out of jail, people get out of prison all the time. Their transition stories, some of them be amazing. Like, you didn't have the resource and access like we did. And they do a transition. They have some of the hardest transitions. You have immigrants that come over here, they have the hardest transitions, but they make it. It's success stories. They make it. You know, those inmates that come out, they make it. You know, so it all depends on how you look at the glass, half empty or half full, right? But you got to be the one to do it. It's not going to fall in your lap. Nobody not going to do it for you. You got to make these right decisions. Yes, somebody's going to be upset. Yes, people are not going to always agree. Yes, people not going to always see where you're coming from. But who sees the big picture when you at the bottom, right? The only person that sees it is you. Everybody don't see it like how you see it sometimes. So you just got to be proactive, and you got to be the one to make this right. This, like I always say, this is your life. This is your life. You know, you have to be the one to make those decisions.